Welcome to EOTalks, Eastern Oregon's very own talk show, only here on EO Alive.
Okay, please introduce yourselves and tell us which office you're running for.
First, I'd like to thank you for giving me this venue and opportunity to come on the air. I am a fifth generation Oregonian and proud to call Eastern Oregon, or the heart of the district, home. I'm the seventh of 9 children to Pat and Carol Doherty. I am Jim Doherty, and I am running for Senate District 29, the seat that's currently held by Senator Hansel. Senator Hansel's done a fantastic job, and he has decided not to re-enter the fray, as it were. And as such, it's left an open seat. And I think it's super important in District 9 that we get somebody equally as passionate, right, to fill that role, maybe with just a little different perspective. Certainly I've got a love for the folks and the region and the values that kind of make us out here in District 29. So I'm super excited to work together with folks and kind of carry their message out here.
Now, can you tell me what you do professionally?
I'm professionally first a father, right, and a husband and a member of the community. I think those things we all are professionals at, right? I make a living and have made a living. Again, as I said, I was the seventh of 9. And with the inheritance taxes the way they are, the death tax, if I might, I knew that, a piece of the old homestead was never in the offing for me. And so when I got out of junior college, Blue Mountain Community College, frankly, went back to home. But went back to the farm and ranch. My father suggested maybe I strike out and try and build a life of my own out there. And so that's just what I did, right? I moved to Central Oregon and managed a ranch there on the south end of the district there in the Willowdale Valley in Jefferson County, kind of the south end of the district now. And always wanted to be a cattle rancher, wanted to follow in the footsteps of my forefathers, et cetera. And a tough time to do it, but it was a time that allowed it, right? I'm not sure with the regulations the way they are now that one would have that ability to do what we did. But I went down and managed a ranch and then leased it for a few years. And the old boy that I worked for, he was willing to pay me a reasonable fee, but I asked him to take it out in livestock instead, and rather live hand to mouth over the first 6 or 8 years. It was blood, sweat, and tears and a lot of elbow grease. But eventually the numbers built up such that, we kind of lived off the land, grew our own, vegetables, and did the little things to get by and just live the life. But it gave us a start. And now my wife and I have built upon that. Again, I'm not sure in today's day and age, as hard as a person wants to work with inflation and some of the challenges out there, that you could get to where we got. But we now run about 700 cows. I own and operate O'Doherty Cattle Company. It's largely a red Angus seed stock operation. And we winter our cows down here along the Columbia River, down here in the shadows of the industrial park, if I might. And we summer them back up on some of the old family homestead right in the Blue Mountains there. So between Heppner and Ukiah. So, as I said, we're all professionals at a lot of different things. And then we earn our income at, various and sundry things. But I've been blessed to, have that lifestyle and that way of life. And additionally, we have maybe 1,000 irrigated acres, and at times, grow some corn and sorghum, sudan, and peas. And so I'm reticent to say that I'm a bit of a farmer, but it's a necessity along with the cattle ranching. So, think professionally that along with a public service role, right? I'm happy to give back in my civic duties, but that's what I do for a living.
Can you describe some of your accomplishments as Morrow County Commissioner?
Thrilled to have had the job, to been elected a couple terms as a county commissioner. It was something about I always wanted to do, and I'd kind of watched Dennis Doherty in that role, and certainly Senator Hansel when he was in that role for, gosh, you could tell me, but I think it was 28 or 30 years, and in that role a long time, and I knew I always wanted to give back, but and so a couple terms ago, it was the final day to file. And my wife had articulated to me, look, if you can tell me why it is that you think you need to run, I'll support it. And the last day to file, I had an hour maybe to get all the way across the county, and it takes a little more than an hour, and to file. And I came home and rapidly changed and headed to the other end of the county. And I wasn't certain, what my motivation was at the time, but I knew it was something that was a calling. It was something I had to do. And certainly as I went out and talked to the folks and they asked me, what's my agenda? What's my plan? And I said, really what I want to do is carry their message and be their conduit to change. And so in my first year, I kind of kept that same model and just, worked forward. And at the end of my first year as a county commissioner, I was elected into the ascension into the president of the Association of Oregon Counties. And it was a time when the strife nationally at the in Congress was pretty divisive, and Salem was getting ever more so divisive, and it was bleeding down a little bit into the 36 counties in Oregon and the 120 commissioners and judges, and we were kind of the last vestige of civility, and so I wanted to hold that together. So I crafted a ability to pull all the counties together and mix and match folks that otherwise might not have, and it kind of drew the counties back, and we realized that we needed to be that firewall right between the people and Salem and legislation, and it carries on even to today. So pretty proud of that moment of being elected. Was also appointed to the National Association of Counties Board of Directors. And was able to take just, the message of the 36 counties in Oregon nationally and go back to Washington, D.C. and, sit down with those folks and be on not just the board of the National Association of Counties, but the Arts and Cultural Committee on the, it's something out here in Eastern Oregon we're a little bit deprived of. It's something that maybe, some folks, they really find an outlet there and they find themselves through the arts and culture. And so it was ability nationally to kind of build that and pull some of those funds and things out here to Eastern Oregon. Additionally, I sat on the Health and Human Services on the National Association of Counties. It's near and dear to me. I think, you hear the old adage, right? If you have your health, you have everything. And boy, that sure rings true evermore. I was also appointed to the governor's turnkey commission, and that was crafted to, when the fires were in southwest Oregon, right, and devastated some of those towns, and we had a lot of folks that were houseless or homeless. It's a tough thing when folks find themselves there for whatever reason. And so we were able to, go out there and increase the ability for folks who'd lost their homes, certainly to the fire and other challenges, and increase that almost 36% across the state. Subsequently, I was appointed to the governor's Alcohol and Drug Policy Commission. That was certainly an interesting venture, given East versus West and some of the approaches and challenges, and appointed to the governor's or the Oregon Hanford Cleanup Board. Sat on that for several years. Again, I think that's something that, I found Senator Hansel on there with me, and lots of folks out here that, we recognize that it's a long-term challenge Hanford is. And yet if we don't carry our portion of the challenge forward, it doesn't get carried forward. And we know it's something that we've got to do for the next generation. So, and then more recently was appointed to as the Oregon delegate to the Greater Hanford Cleanup Board. So, I'm pretty excited to, continue that kind of work. Of course, we're energy central out here a little bit, right? renewable energy, although I would argue that renewable energy flows by us every day. But certainly the solar and wind and battery power plants came out this way, and I had the ability to negotiate the country's largest wind, battery, and solar power right here in the heart of Morrow County. And as we drew down to the end, I said I wanted additionally $15 million or the first $1 million every year over 15 years to go to again the arts and right here in Morrow County, and they were a little resident to do so. But I said if we're gonna move forward, this is something you have to do, or I can't get on board. And ultimately, they found a way to get it done, and it's still a program that I'm super proud of. Lastly, I think Alex, anybody that has been around the last few years or recognized, myself and the efforts here in Morrow County, recognizes that, after some 25 or 30 years of the ever increasing nitrate challenge here, I took it upon myself to go out there and into some areas that heretofore hadn't been tested, right? And the first 6 tests I think I took in and crossed a 6-mile stretch down here, and all 6 of them were undrinkable, and so largely Hispanic speaking folks. So I got some folks to come out and help me that could bilingual folks, and we went out and did a broader stretch across the county here. In the first 70, the first 68 of the 70 tests were undrinkable, and I asked a series of nitrate related health questions, and just if folks wanted to volunteer them. I knew in my heart immediately that the miscarriages in kidney cancers and thyroid cancers and the challenges I was hearing back, really made my heart heavy. And I knew that somebody had to stand up, and now was the time. And you hear the phrase, is this the hill you're willing to die on? And I thought later that, this is the hill as a politician that I would certainly be willing to die on, if only that other folks don't literally have to. And so I took a hard stand and made a big push, and it was tough. And I knew folks were going to push back maybe for the wrong reasons. And they did, but I stood my ground, and eventually the folks that had been inundated with this challenge, came to the fore and gathered around me, and we were able to push forward. And, that now there's a colossal effort moving here in the basin, in the heart of the district, where, we're looking at a $500-600 million project going into the industrial park with our industrial park partners. And I'm certainly willing to, help them in this. 3 Mile Canyon Dairy and my dear friend Jeff Windler is leaning into the effort now, and Wes Killian of Beef Northwest, and John Wilson, the owner of Wilson Cattle Company and Beef Northwest, and Bill Antilla of RDO Farms. These folks recognized, that the folks that were helping them, couldn't be going home to these challenges. And so they're doing everything they can. And I think at this point, that's all we can ask, is that folks are, walking the right path, right? We know we have to have some of these operations and challenges, but what cost, right? It can't be the cost of lives. So, it's a colossal effort, and, the state has rallied around it. The Environmental Protection Agency is waiting in the wings, and I continually assure them that we are doing everything here, kind of to keep the heavy hand of the federal government at bay. And, but, I'll keep an eye on the kitchen faucet, right? And the folks that, are drinking these waters. So it'll prove to be, probably the biggest effort in the district, perhaps in generations, and it will affect generations to come. But you got to have the courage to stand up and stand steadfast. And so, that's something that, it'll always be a huge feather in my cap. And I hate to think of it that way, but When I see moms and dads out there with young kids, I'm just blessed to think that, maybe we're making a difference, right? Maybe those folks are, have filters in their homes and I can breathe a little easier and sleep at night. So thank you.
Can you tell me more about your community of Morrow County?
Yeah, sure. And community is a lot of different things, right? To me, community is not just the geography or folks you can reach out to, but it's how we interconnect, across the district. Certainly Morrow County itself, and goes back to my family history, is largely made up of, historic Irish immigrants and other immigrants, and a large influx of more modern migrants, right? And it's made for a fantastic blend of cultures and ideologies, and it's also come with some challenges as you try and move forward and get some things done. There's some socioeconomic challenges in and around the county. I think in my tenure as a commissioner, we were the third highest average income in the state. At the same time, we were the third highest in the poverty level. And we kind of led the state by a factor of almost 10x in older mobile homes or old manufactured homes. And so we knew we had a challenge right there, right? It was the folks working at one level and the folks assisting them at another, which is fine as folks and generations build forward and build a life. But we wanted to make sure that everybody just had equal opportunity to move ahead in the county. But I think of the community as a little greater whole, right? It's across the district, and it's shared values. It's shared beliefs. It's shared challenges, right? Shared geography. If I might, out here, and what goes on in the uplands, whether it's in the Wallow Mountains or in the Blue Mountains or in Union County, they affect Umatilla certainly, and Morrow County, and so I think we have to be pretty interconnected, or think community wide across the district, and be willing to help one another out. I think certainly I'd like to assimilate all the sheriffs across the district into one group and have meetings with them, and the policymakers the same thing, and clerks and assessors and folks like that, because I think the district, we need to look at the district as a community, and not just certainly we need to take care of those closest to us, but it's got to be a ripple effect. Those closest to us have got to take care of those further out, and even that the folks at the heart of the district here have to, look out for the folks on the outer edges.
Now, as you talk to voters, what are you hearing them say they want the next senator for Senate District 29 to focus on?
Certainly inflation and taxes and small business taxes and the cat taxes. But I think primarily, Alex, it would probably be just the notion that we once again want our voices heard, right, out here. And you hear that in a lot of things they're saying, right? They said, we need forest management out here. But we feel like we're shouting into a vacuum. We need access to these forests. We can't be, pushed clear off of them by folks that don't want to listen to the local voices. So I think that's largely probably the biggest push I hear is, across the board a little bit, right? We got housing challenges, and we know that, and we keep, trying to push that forward a little bit. And it's largely unheard, or the folks certainly think it is. So I think we've got to elevate the message out here. Back in Salem, certainly our constitutional rights, are being pushed back on, and I hear that from folks. And again, I think it's just whatever it is. There's several base level challenges that you hear pretty regular, but kind of the overarching challenge is they wonder, whatever the challenge is, if they're being heard, as we go to Salem and further on.
Now, who is your favorite Oregon historical?
My favorite Oregon historical figure. I'm gonna, if I might, Alex, I'm going to use a prop here real quick. I've heard him mentioned a couple times in some of your but I would say certainly former Governor Tom McCall, right? He dared to be different. He dared to protect the environment and the folks, and he did some things at his time that I'm not sure you could get done now without having the right person in the role. He's famous for saying, right, visit Oregon, but don't stay. Oregon is demure and lovely, right? And you'd be as sick as I am, he said, if you thought she was a hungry hussy, just throwing herself at every smokestack that came along. I think that the thought there is we got to protect what's ours, and we got to move forward, carefully in what we do, whether it's power lines or data centers, or you got to understand what the give and take is. And we got to protect Oregon, the Oregon we know, as we build forward and build jobs and these things. So, Tom McCall is, he's always been somebody I've kind of looked up to. He preserved the Oregon coast in a time when he had to fight mightily to do it, and but yet history is smiling kindly, right? I don't think there's any Oregonians on either side of the aisle that don't absolutely adore the fact that we have our Oregon coast, and so I think you've got to have those kind of thoughts moving forward. So certainly Tom McCall.
Now, can you tell me what are the primary sources of your personal values?
Personal values are, to me, there's a lot of things, right? But I think responsibility and integrity and kindness and generosity, courage, backed up with confidence, right? And pervasiveness. And, I think you've got to first always want to do the right thing. And, excuse me, coming from a large family and having to make our way out there in a large, like I say, large family and operation many miles from civilization, if I might. You learn to get along, and you learn to get along with your friends and neighbors, and yet you also had to stand your ground and stand up for yourself and what was right. So
do you anticipate any potential criticisms from your opponents, and do you have any responses to potential criticisms you think you get?
The state offices as the president of the Association of Counties, and doing a lot of things and taking on some of the challenges. Certainly there's going to be criticisms. You're never going to keep everybody happy all the time, nor should you, right? There's folks that are looking out for their own self-interests instead of the greater whole. And when you start looking after the greater whole, they're going to push back and be unhappy. And I would say probably the criticism that I may get leveled at me, is at times I was unyielding and, dug my heels in and pushed too hard and drew a line in the sand. But these were only times when diplomacy and statesmanship and listening and trying to work with the other folks and trying to understand where they were coming from and try and get them to understand, the needs of the community out there. And only at times like that, or when it was self-serving, and they just didn't want to stand up and do what was right. Then I think it's time to dig in and push back hard, right? The old adage, walk softly and carry a big stick. Certainly I'm a people person and a people person first, and would love nothing more than to sit down and continue discussions and work things forward. But, at times I think you have to take a hard stance and I'll accept that criticism because, when and where I've done it, I think it's certainly been warranted and necessary.
Now, given the use of walkouts by the Senate Republican caucus in the last 5 years, if there were to be potential walkouts in the future, would you consider participating in them?
That's a little different question, Alex, than I thought maybe it was going to be framed up as would I plan to participate in them. And I would not plan to participate in any walkouts. I would plan to go to Salem and see these things coming and, carry the message from the folks of the district. And when there was legislation that, was akin to what our beliefs are and what our hopes and dreams are, or wish to suppress those or suppress our rights, I would roll up my sleeves and work incredibly hard. I think first and foremost, that's what the folks in the district want, right? They want somebody to show up, deliver their message, and deliver it in a way that it gets heard. I think at the end of the day, it's a tool in the toolbox, and certainly there's some things that one would walk out on, right? Parental rights and some of these challenges. We can't have them taken away. But I think the challenge a little bit is if you take a principled stand, right, which is the walkout, you say, there's no more diplomacy. We are going to take a principled stand here. You better stand on that principle. If you're able to work an agreement at the 11th hour, that agreement was there a couple months ago. And I think we would need to work harder to come to an agreement that folks can live with, rather than using these hardline walkouts. Again, there's, certainly some things I would walk out on, but I think if you're going to take a principled stand and walk out, you better stand on that principle. And, in this latest walkout, I think that's something certainly the folks that, walked out and went back and their constituents are going to have to wrestle with. I wasn't in the room. I supported them, as they came out and took their principled stand. But it's something, that you have to be in there and you have to, look in your heart and say, is this something that I will walk out and hold firm on? So I think it's something that, like I say, it's a tool in the toolbox, but I would plan to go in and do everything I could to avoid that and just try and have the voices heard.
All right, now it's time for our world famous lightning round. So first off, ducks or beavers?
Got to go with the Beavers. Yeah, hands down. Sorry, Senator Hansel, but we got to go the Beavers all the way.
What's your favorite Eastern Oregon landmark?
Favorite Eastern Oregon landmark, of course, having been down in Jefferson County and the Wallowas and the Swiss Alps and the high desert and the river, a lot of things, right? Don't want to pander to everybody across the district because, but it's a gorgeous district and it's huge, right? And we go all the way from 800 feet to to the mountaintops, right? I wouldn't know what the highest elevation. I probably should, but so certainly we've got a lot of geography, but my favorite landmark is what I call Proposition Hill. And it's up where I run my cows in the Blue Mountains between Heppner and Ukiah. And it's a terrible, tough slog for those cows to walk up out of the bottom. And it takes a better part of a day. And a few years back, as we crested the top of the hill on a pretty arduous day, my son asked me to hold his horse, and he got off and proposed to my daughter-in-law. And so it's since been known as Proposition Hill, and it's just near and dear to my heart.
What is your favorite Eastern Oregon beer?
For a good dyed-in-the-wool Irishman, that's pretty easy. It's got to be Jameson, right? or a Guinness. No, I'm making light, but there's lots of good microbrews, whether it's the Two Taps or the Ordnance or some of these things. I think it's interesting as you bring that up, Alex, with the beers that they're Salem right now, right, is looking at a beer and wine tax. At the same time, they're handing out drug paraphernalia, and so it's kind of tough to take. I know that's not where you're headed with this question, but little lighter. But you want to see these folks get a foothold, but I don't really have a favorite beer. So
last up, what is your favorite Eastern Oregon restaurant?
I'd have to go with all the small mom and pop restaurants out there, right? When I grew up on the sheep ranch, we trailed sheep from Umatilla and Morrow County all the way to Union and Wallowa County and up into Grant County. And, you just put on a good pair of boots and you start walking and it might take us 2 weeks to trail them from here to Elgin or to LeGrand. And every little town you went through, whether it was the trail room in Ukiah, right, or the Starkey store or the Meadowbrook store, those were the stops. And boy, after a hard day's walking, any of those little joints were certainly you've got some fantastic restaurants in Hales or Pendleton and Semiotti's and some of those things. But I think the smaller ones out in the burgs, every time I drive through a little town, I stop and eat. But my favorite place to eat, and always should be, is home, sitting around the table with the family.
Now, last up, can you share with our viewers how they can get in touch with you and give them some final thoughts?
Yeah, sure. You can reach out to Jim Doherty for Oregon.com. And certainly, if you give me one moment, Alex, I wanted to get my phone number is 541-449-0306. And again, it's at Jim Doherty for Oregon.com. So I would say, just last thoughts, the rank and file, the people out in the district, right, are seeking to have their voices heard and know that somebody's there for them. And I would certainly say that I'll stand behind you, right, or I'll stand in front of you. I'll stand beside you. Rest assured, I stand with you. So thank you, Alex.